Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. Carolina, the greatest rivalry in college basketball. North Carolina goes into Cameron Indoor Stadium and locks up the ACC regular season title outright with a dominant win. I don't think Duke ever led. I think they cut it to 1 at one point in the second half. Doug, you were there. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Cormac Ryan? Do you want to start with North Carolina? Do you want to start with Duke? Or do you want to start with the flip trip? It's your world, bud.
The flip trip.
Flip trip is going to be the most discussed, right? Because he's a Dookie, because somehow he survived the murderous acts of the Wake Forest student section to live to play another day. But I don't know. There's a lot to it. I mean, maybe you tee it up. By the way, why would I have a problem with you saying the Mountain West is like the most entertaining league? I've been saying that.
Doug loves the league. Right. Doug loves it more than we do. We're all together in the Mountain West.
Awesome.
Well, let me ask you this, Doug. How impressive was this?
It was really impressive. I thought the one flaw to Hubert Davis and what he did today was the auto bench of Elliot Cadu in the first half nearly cost him. It was a 15-point game. He got a second foul, takes him out. I think it was 8 or 9 at the half, but it was a completely different. It was like they turned the ball over. They weren't getting good shots. They just kind of survived the end of the first half. I think he's figuring it out. Like he's still like, I know he hit that kind of lucky three-pointer where they only gave him 2 for that. That was a bizarre call. His foot was pretty clearly behind the line, and then somebody stepped on his foot, so it wasn't moving. But regardless of which, here's what I like about Carolina. I'm still not in the, like, Jeff and I had this discussion. We were all doing this once before. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't put him in the UConn Houston class. Maybe I should. But what I like about them is they all have their roles. They've all accepted their roles. And some of it is you're just old enough to where you've given up trying to prove people wrong, right? They got something out of their bench, but like Cormac Ryan, he knows what his role is. Now, he drove the ball a little bit tonight. He had a pull-up midi, which I've never seen him take before. He got to the free throw line 8 times, made all 8. But for the most part, those guys really know their role, and they accept their role. That's the difference between Purdue and some of these other teams. That's the difference. That's the difference in them and Duke. Like Duke, you have usually 3 or 4 guys, and they're just trying to score. And then Flip is really who they play through. But nobody really creates shots for others. Nobody's just a catch and shoot guy. If not, move it. I like North Carolina, the makeup of their roster in terms of here's what you do. Like Seth Trimble he turned down several wide open threes, but made some middies today. Like the guys know what they do and do what they do. And I thought that was as big a difference as Cormac Ryan's shooting was, is that they had guys that played simply to their strengths. And for the most part, there was about a 3 or 4 minute stretch in the first half where they got out of it. For the most part, they played to those strengths.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it one step further, and I've said this earlier this year. You had a bunch of guys that lost last year that had something to prove, right? Everybody talked about them, whether it was Baycott, RJ, it was a disaster of a year. Harrison Ingram, was a big-time recruit who came in at Stanford and lost. Cormac Ryan lost 1 million games last year. Elliot Cadeau comes in and a reclassified point guard, and everybody's telling him this shit never works, right? Everybody fails who's a reclassified point guard. So I think they all had something to prove. They came together. They did it. They won enough early that I think, again, Hubert was able to kind of get them on the same page of like, hey, if you guard – and they won early in ACC play, especially on the road. I was there at that game at Clemson. That was a huge one for them to kind of get their confidence and realize, like, all right, we don't have to outscore people. We can actually guard a little bit too.
Yeah, I think to me what stood out in this particular game, and I agree with everything you guys just said, but what stood out to me in this particular game was every time that there was a loose ball, North Carolina got it. Every time that there was a possession where you're like, okay, Duke needs a bucket here. right? This could kind of get things going in their favor. This is where they take the lead. This is where they cut it to 1. This is where they get it back to 1 possession. Every single time you ran into a situation like that, North Carolina got the stop. I felt like what we were watching, Doug, is exactly what these rosters are. You got a bunch of veterans, a bunch of older guys that have taken their lumps, that have been beat up a little bit, that understand that, okay, look, I'm going to have to put my ego aside because I'm not going to come out like you're Harrison Ingram, right? You're not going to be a top 10 pick anymore. So you go out there, you do a job, you're going to win at a high level, and maybe proving that you are this guy that can fill a role will get you a job at the NBA level, maybe the G League level, maybe overseas, whatever it is. I think what you're seeing with these Duke guys is 2 to 3 years younger that don't quite understand that, okay, everyone has to sacrifice themselves a little bit for the betterment of the whole, right? And look, all credit goes to Cormac Ryan. He hit some absolute daggers tonight where it's going up and you're just like, it's one of those ones.
Right? We've been waiting for this all year for him. All year.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it felt good to have.
Let me get on the back of what you. Let me get in the back of what you said, Rob. Is you're right. Like I was in the first 6 or 7 minutes of the game, where we were doing the broadcast from is in the corner, and so Seth Greenberg and Jay Will were behind me while we're doing the radio broadcast. And I had said, like, that's 3, like the first 3 balls on the floor, North Carolina's on the floor. You're like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, that's how Duke, like, that's what Duke is synonymous with, right? And, you know, I don't do the who wants it more, but North Carolina was willing to sacrifice more. There was even a play in the second half where Elliot Kadu kind of deflected the ball and was going out of bounds, and he made the super smart play, dove after it, and then threw it towards his backcourt, which is how you're taught. And then Ingram went after it, didn't get it, Flip got it, threw it to somebody, and they knocked down a shot. So it looked like, well, Duke won the possession because they hit a 3, but the reality was 2 Carolina players both diving on the floor, 0 Duke players diving on the floor, right? And so I'm not going to sit here and do the, hey, they're entitled, but you're totally right, Rob. Like that's a great way to express it. Like these are guys that they're just playing to win. That's their only agenda. They'll do anything it can to win. And when you're still young, like you're still like trying to prove yourself, and you think the way to prove yourself is give me the ball and I'm going to prove myself, you know? And that ain't how it works. You know, you got to do all the little things what proves you. If you didn't need to do the little things, if you did all the big things, you wouldn't be in college for 2 or 3 years. You know, you'd be playing in the league. So I think it's a great point you make. They played to their rosters. I was really impressed by the toughness of North Carolina. That was the first half. It felt like they didn't call any fouls. Like it was really, they let them play. That's why the trip was a big thing. Like I know on social media it's a big thing, but there was like a bunch of plays that preceded the trip. They're like, wow, that was a foul. Well, that was a foul. They just get to let it go. And so, and I thought that usually in a game like that, usually Duke wins. I mean, again, you look at the history of the last 25 years. When it's just we're not calling any fouls, it's who's more physical, you know, plus it's at Duke. They're diving, they're taking charges, they're whatever. Like that, and they get the calls. That ain't this Duke team. They got a couple calls in the second half to help them. Several, in fact, that helped them. But Carolina played more physically and I guess harder. Like that's, you know, effort plays. 50-50 balls are 50-50 for a reason. It's supposed to be both guys going after it. And only the Carolina guys kind of went after it. That was a weird deal.
Yeah, Jeff, real quick, we'll talk about. Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.